Let's discuss the government's repatriation efforts with DFA USEC Eduardo de Vega. Magandang umaga po sa inyo, USEC.
Magandang umaga po. Ano po?
USEC, alam ko po busy po kayo, ano?
Magandang umaga.
Magandang umaga. Thank you so much for joining us first thing in the morning. Before we go to the repatriation and the numbers and the details of that, I want to know, amid all the missiles fired in the Middle East, where does the Philippines officially stand in the attack of Israel and the United States on Iran?
We're surely not going to take sides, except on the side of peace and diplomacy. And that's what we said while the hostilities were ongoing. And that's what we said after we welcomed the ceasefire. So we're not going to say that the U.S. or Iranians have our support in their attack, nor that Iran should be supported in launching missiles against Israel, because we always call for peace. However, yes, as a member of the International Committee of Nations, Iran has a responsibility to follow the program or the restrictions set by the International Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna. So we just welcome the latest developments. So far, the ceasefire is holding, according to our ambassadors in the region.
From your point of view, were there clear violations by Iran on the regulations on the nuclear developments on their end?
Well, the last time that they allowed inspections was May. So perhaps we have to see again. We need to hear the IAEA's pronouncements to see if there's something to do. Obviously, Iran would be in a position now, would be better position to discuss the matter with the agency after the ceasefire was announced, because even before, they were saying that they were willing to talk again with the U.S. About the issue. So hopefully that's a positive step. Of course, Israel's position is that this has been ongoing for years and they won't stop their nuclear program. Our main concern, of course, is peace in the region, so that our millions of kababayan all over the Middle East would be safe.
But as a member of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, they are subject to many inspections. But Israel, on the other hand, is not a member of that. Isn't it a little bit ironic?
Yes, it looks like it, and then the U.S. withdrew. So, again, we won't openly voice out anything certainly related to launching attacks on each other. Under international law, there is the prohibition of the use of force. Because Israel says it was self-defense, and so does Iran. We just say stick to the path of peace.
Well, no matter what, I mean, the recent happenings have brought Iran, Israel, and the United States back to the negotiating table. Next week, there will be talks among these three countries. How confident are we that this will remain a 12-day war? How are we seeing events as they unfold? Ano po yung mga binabantayan po natin?
Pwede ko sabihin 12 days na hindi na tatagal pa, no? We're diplomats, so we'll be optimistic. Alam niyo yung classic statement, hope for the best, expect the worst. What does that mean? We certainly hope and express confidence, especially with USA's, shall we say, strong leadership under the current administration. We certainly hope that it will hold and that there will be some arrangement or agreement that will make it a lasting one. No? Because what we see is a seasonal exchange between these countries. But this was the most deadly, because before, Israel might fire some spew missiles, Iran might fire some. Absolutely no threat to life and limb, but now there has been. But now we're hopeful. Nevertheless, when I say prepare for the worst, note on another topic, we're still repatriating Filipinos, as you mentioned, as the reporter mentioned. We're still encouraging them to go home because the situation is still volatile or fragile. Of course, there's a return to normalcy in both countries. Both our ambassadors saying, especially in Israel, you go out the street and then people are canoeing or biking. While in Tehran, uh, days ago, weeks ago, it was somewhat being deserted. But now the people from Iran, from Tehran, including I'm sure Filipino wives married to Iranians and their families are coming back. And so there's a return to normalcy. Nevertheless, we'd still like to encourage Filipinos to go home. After all, there are integration programs in the Philippines. They're given financial assistance and so forth. No, we will study the recommendation to lower the alert level back to, in Israel at least, to alert level 2, meaning no voluntary repatriation. Pero may I explain? It doesn't mean pag wala ng formal announcement na please come home. It doesn't mean pag may humingi na ng tulong para umuwi, wag na, wag na. No, no, no. It's a standard. Filipinos in the Middle East, for example, who want to be repatriated are assisted. And it's not, as you know, it's not always because there's a threat of war or they feel insecure. In most cases, it's because they escape from their amo, at least in other countries, no, outside of Israel and Iran. So, tuloy yun. Kung sinong gusto umuwi, kay may alert level o what, makakauwi. Tutulungan umuwi. So, yun ang bottom line.
Tutulungan umuwi at yung assistance, financial assistance of 150,000 will still be there when the alert level gets dropped to to 2 or 1.
That's my understanding. Although I can't speak for Secretary Kaklak, but because they do make announcements on this, kasi that's their department's money. But when Filipinos are repatriated from abroad, it's a whole of agency approach. The DFA could pay for it or the DMW because we have a separate funds. But when they arrive here, sinasalubong sila. Not just by DFA and DMW, OWA, but even other agencies. The DSW is there, DOH is there, even sometimes there's congressmen there with the offers or with the promises of assistance. Last Tuesday, when the 26 plus a few more from, as you mentioned, from Jordan, Qatar, and the West Bank arrived, 31 in all, along with Secretary Hans Kakdak, no less. It wasn't just DMW and DFA officials. Secretary Herbosa was at the airport and told them about the health services that could be provided them. DSWD is always there. So, tuloy-tuloy yan. As for the amount of financial assistance, that may vary. That depends on the DMW because last year it was 150,000. Maybe, I hope it's not that bad inflation, but it's 150,000 pesos now. So, of course, excellent picture. You see, I'm OWA administrator to the right. Then there's a DFA official, and there's Secretary Kakdak and Secretary Boss, I believe, with him. That's excellent, and that will continue to happen once we have repatriations. There was mention of 20. We still don't have the flight details. Significantly, the batch used to be 50, now 20 na lang. So you know what it means. Probably the 30 backed out because there's a ceasefire now. So, pero tuloy-tuloy yan. Kung sinong, may alert level o wala, pag gusto ng Pilipino umuwi, tutulungan namin. Ang maganda lang kung may alert level, we're officially announcing it. We'd like you to go home. Alert level 4, again, I've said this, I'll repeat. You see, some were saying, bakit hindi alert level 4? Well, if we had made it mandatory, tapos ngayon may ceasefire, well, that would make it appear that we took a rash decision. Same now. If we say, let's lower it right away, what if this weekend may bombahan na naman? So, we take decisions measured, in a measured manner, no?
Well, we hope the assistance remains. We do know, as we mentioned,
Oh, yeah.
that this has been going
Utos si
on
Presidente yan.
for a long
So,
time.
utos ni Presidente na tumulong. So, tuloy yan.
The Philippine Center for Islam and Democracy has urged the government to call for an immediate cessation of the conflict between Israel and Iran, citing that this puts at risk about 2 million OFWs, not just in Iran, but it's in neighboring states. Help us understand, no? Paano po dikit-dikit yung ano, kung sakasakaling the problem gets worse, hopefully it does not, but gaano kalaki yung epekto, no, sa mga Pinoy sa Middle East?
A few points there, no? About the call, no? And happy Islamic New Year. I was yesterday, but happy Islamic New Year to our Muslim brothers and sisters. Salam alaikum. Now, about the call. Well, we made that call in our statements before, no? Na matapos na ceasing hostilities. The main issue in the Middle East, I believe, is not Israel versus Iran, but Israel and the Palestinians. So we've also called for a two-state solution. Remember, the current repatriation efforts began in October 2023 when Israel and Hamas had this issue, and it's a huge problem and a huge, return to hostilities. No, now about how this will affect the 2 million Filipinos. We saw it from this particular issue. The Arab neighbors did not seem to want to be involved because may kasabihan sa American English, I have no dog in that fight, or in Tagalog, wala akong manok diyan. In other words, well, not all have peaceful relations with Israel, and they have tense relations with Iran, which is a Persia, not an Arab country, and whose people are mostly Shiite Muslims. So, and perhaps Arab countries also are objecting to Iran's nuclear program. So, it did not seem to have a danger of spreading to other countries. Unlike, to give an example, when Israel started in around October 2023 or November, started striking at Hamas targets in Gaza, causing a lot of civilian casualties. It spread to southern Lebanon. The Houthis in Yemen also started firing. Iran seemed to have had a role also in counterattacks against Israel. This did not happen this time. However, if there is a spread, and we hope not, because that would mean World War III na yan, we do have contingency plans in place in every embassy in the region. How to repatriate thousands of Filipinos. We've done it before in Libya, Lebanon, obviously Gaza. It's going to be a challenge to repatriate over 1 million Filipinos in Saudi Arabia and at least almost 1 million in the UAE. But it most likely will not go to that level. It's also not just the Philippines, for example. We have to thank Malaysia and other countries provide assistance. For example, you mentioned Iran. We're going through the Turkmenistan border. Wala tayong embassy doon, but there is a Malaysian embassy. And they're offering assistance through to ASEAN Spirit para salubungin yung mga kababayan natin. Although we did send a team now from the DFA to reach them. And I believe even as we speak, they're on their way home already and will be arriving later this afternoon.
So that's the back door. Okay,
Yes.
because we're running out of time, one final question. There are fears, because you are preparing for the worst, as you mentioned. There are fears that the Philippines may get dragged into this through the EDCA sites. What is the possibility of those facilities being used to assist the United States? Is that something that's being talked about by the DFA?
Not yet, because, Secretary Manalo, who is still the secretary until the new secretary takes over next week, was mentioning yesterday that in his talks with Secretary Rubio of the U.S., this is not mentioned. We talked about the ironclad commitment between both countries. We may be a bit far for the EDCA sites to be used in the Middle East. U.S. has assets in the region. For example, Iran attacked the U.S. base in Qatar. And that really angered the Qataris, although there was no harm to any civilian or in Qatar. No, so perhaps we won't be involved at all. And besides, we do have good relations with all parties in the region. We have good relations with Israel, with the Arab countries, and even with Iran. Something that most countries, including the United States, cannot necessarily claim.
O kasi nung 2001, 2 months after the 9/11 attacks, the U.S. military actually refueled in Clark Air Base en route from Japan to the Middle East. So kaya ko po natanong yun. Pero I guess
Really?
the last statement weighs
I
more.
remember. Pero there's no, kasi EDCA is not a full base. I mean, they're just sites, no, where for positioning, meaning, yeah. So if U.S. jets will fly, will come there, will go there, there's no refueling there, no. So if that's what you mean. Besides, why are we talking, Ms. Gretchen, of well, I know the media. Why are we talking about war? I'm
No,
a
because we
diplomat.
want to
We're
be
talking
prepared.
about peace.
We
We're
have
talking
to be
about
prepared.
peace. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk
You
about
talk to
peace.
DFA, kung ganyan.
Yes, agree
And by the way,
with you.
any country has that twin approach. There's the good cop, bad cop. So I don't know how you call it. You have to defend yourself militarily. So there you have Secretary Giboy, the AFP. And then there's diplomacy. So there's the DFA. So you're asking me about war. Let's talk peace. Yeah.
Okay, that's why we have to balance our diplomatic
Perfect.
stance, no, to keep those relations with
Look,
Iran,
we
with
just
Israel,
had
and
good
the
news.
United States.
Yeah, nagkaroon ng ceasefire. There's good. That's good news. So if we keep talking the winds of war, parang I don't know, osmosis or something. Parang if everybody in the world was talking about that, it's like we're urging the Israelis and the Iranians to go back to firing at each other. No, we won't.
But have we taken a definitive stance on the nuclear arsenal of Iran? Have we denounced it, or have we made an official statement about that? Because there are arguments that what happened could actually spur them to develop these technologies further. Lalo na yung sinabi po ni Ayatollah, most sites are still in place and Iran is going to continue on its nuclear program.
We haven't made, at least not lately, a single statement to that effect. We're concerned about, first and foremost, our kababayans in Iran. No? But, of course, we're a member of the international community. So we support what the international community is saying, including you and Secretary General. Now, as for what you said that Ayatollah mentioned, that's not a surprise, of course. The Iranians will not suddenly come. You cannot expect them to lose face and say, oh, well, okay, we were bombed. Yeah, we surrender, we lose. No, they will say those things. But the U.S. and Israel have said that they have crippled, or even U.S. has even used, I think, the word obliterated Iran's capability. We'll see, because no doubt they're inclined to try again. But at least for now, I would believe it when they say that the threat of Iran developing a nuclear bomb has been diminished. What we could worry about is if this is just again now and then after several months we have to do it again, the U.S. will do it again. Hopefully not. So let's just, aside from that, we go back to the talk about the welfare of our kababayans. No Filipino has been injured in Iran. There is one injury in Israel, very critical, this lady, and yet she's surviving. That's a Filipino resilience. We thank Israel. They're paying. I'm sure it's not cheap, the medical treatment, and they're paying for it. So thank you, Israel. So
keep up the good work
we'll
when
wait
it comes to our balikbayans.
for the statement. We don't want to anger any
Yes.
country by making
That's true.
statements that might be misinterpreted. Thank you.
Okay. I want to shift the topic over to the former president. Of course, he is in The Hague, and there are questions over whether he will be allowed to take his oath mayoral oath to be proclaimed. Are there developments on that end?
As my secretary would say, this is for the DOJ. I must say, though, the DFA role in this, when he was brought there, I myself told our ambassador that he's still a Filipino citizen, so he's entitled to assistance if required. And what happened was the families went there, and they just went there in the height of winter, so we had to give them winter clothes. We even helped in securing immediate visas so that his Philippine lawyers.
But could he take his oath before the ambassador?
If he's allowed, yes, he can take his oath. The ambassador is the, how do you say, it's authorized under the administrative code to solemnize oaths. Of course, the consul as well. We'll have to see what the ICC agrees. And we're not a member of the ICC anymore. His lawyers will have to argue this. We'll follow whatever is decided, because we're certainly, if you mean, is the ambassador going to go to the cell and administer the oath there? No, because there's a legal theory that it's only within the premises of the chancery, the embassy itself, where our consular and diplomatic officials have that authority under international law to solemnize oath. So he'll have to be brought to the embassy. The thing is, will the ICC allow it? You never know. They might. They might. So, and we're not going to refuse it, because if he asks, the Filipino citizen, I was brought here, I just want to have this oath solemnized. My oath of office.
I guess we'll know.
Think we will refuse.
Alright.
He won.
Oo, tama po kayo.
Hmm.
Okay, maraming
But
salamat
I have
po.
to go back. I have to, every second spent, even on charming interviewers like yourself, is a second taken away where we could actually work to help our kababayan. So media, if I say no
maraming
sometimes,
salamat
please
po.
understand. Bye-bye.
We understand.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much
Have a
for
good
your
morning
time
and happy
today,
Friday.
for your precious time. We have DFA USEC Eduardo de Vega giving us the latest from the Middle East.